The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. Ambassador Kalara of the Zephyrian hegemony stood before the curved podium, her forearms spread wide in a gesture of authority. Behind, her holographic displays showed star maps marked with red zones, human colonies that had sprouted like weeds across what the hegemony considered their rightful territory. "Esteemed members of the Council," Kalara began, her voice carrying the weight of 12 allied species. "We gather today to address a growing threat to galactic stability. The humans, in their reckless expansion, have violated 17 territorial agreements and established colonies in 43 systems without proper authorization," the assembled delegates murmured among themselves. Some nodded in agreement, while others remained silent. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their word was law, their military might unquestioned. "These primitives," Kalara continued, her tone growing sharper, "achieved faster than light travel a mere 2 centuries ago. In that brief span, they have spread like a plague across the stars. Where other civilized species took millennia to develop proper spacefaring protocols, humans rush forward with no regard for established order. On Earth, President Sarah Chen sat in the Situation Room beneath the rebuilt White House. The transmission from Nexus Prime played on the main screen while her advisors watched in tense silence. General Marcus Torres, head of the United Earth Defense Force, leaned forward in his chair. "They're really going to do this," he muttered, "after all our diplomatic efforts." Chen nodded grimly. For months, human diplomats had tried to negotiate with the hegemony. They offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, even joint colonization projects. Every proposal was rejected with increasing hostility. "The humans claim they are peaceful," Kalara's voice echoed from the speakers. "Yet they arm every colony ship, fortify every settlement, and refuse to acknowledge our legitimate claims to these systems. Their very existence threatens the careful balance we have maintained for 3,000 years. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, Earth's chief xenobiologist, shook her head. "They don't understand us at all. They see our defensive preparations as aggression, our rapid expansion as a threat. They've lived in stagnation for so long they can't comprehend a species that evolves quickly." The hegemony delegate raised her primary arms again. "Therefore, by unanimous vote of the 12-member species, we demand the immediate withdrawal of all human presence from the disputed systems. You have 72 standard hours to comply. Failure to do so will result in military action." The transmission ended. The Situation Room fell silent except for the hum of computers and air circulation systems. President Chen stood slowly, her hands pressed flat against the polished table. "General Torres, what's the status of our defensive preparations?" Torres consulted his tablet. "All colonies have been evacuated to underground shelters. Our fleet positions are optimal for the scenarios we've run. The surprise weapon systems are fully operational. And the contingency protocols? Ready to implement on your command, Madam President." Chen walked to the window overlooking the Potomac River. In the distance, she could see the construction cranes working on the new orbital elevator. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. From a single world to over 200 colonies in just 2 centuries. They called it remarkable. The aliens called it threatening. "They think we're primitive," she said softly. "They assume we'll fold under pressure like some pre-spaceflight civilization begging for mercy." "Their mistake," Torres replied. "Every war game we've run shows the same result. Their tactics are 3,000 years old. Predictable, honorable, ineffective against asymmetric warfare." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. Across human space, colonies went dark. Ships disappeared from shipping lanes. Military vessels vanished from their patrol routes. To external observers, it appeared humanity was preparing for surrender. The Zephyrian fleet assembled at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, where the human colony of New Geneva had been established for 15 years. Admiral Vorthak commanded. The expedition from his flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Star's Judgment. Around him, 200 warships formed perfect battle formations. "Begin the demonstration," Vorthak ordered. The fleet moved toward New Geneva with methodical precision. Long-range scanners showed the planet's defensive platforms were offline. No human ships rose to meet them. The colony seemed to be offering no resistance at all. "Pathetic," muttered Commander Zelith from the tactical station. "They abandoned their people without even attempting a defense." As the fleet reached optimal firing position, Vorthak opened a communication channel to broadcast across known space. "Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the authority of the Zephyrian hegemony. Aggression against our rightful territory will not be tolerated." The orbital bombardment began. Plasma cannons and particle beams lanced down from orbit, turning New Geneva's cities into glowing craters. The planet's atmosphere caught fire in some places, creating storms of flame visible from space. Within 6 hours, the surface was a molten wasteland. "Scan for survivors," Vorthak commanded. "None detected, Admiral. The planet is completely sterilized." The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. "Record everything. Broadcast it on all frequencies. Let humanity see what defiance costs." The footage spread across the galaxy within hours. New Geneva burning, civilian settlements melting under alien fire, children's playgrounds turned to glass. The message was clear and brutal. On Earth, President Chen watched the recordings with her cabinet. Faces around the table showed anger, grief, and determination in equal measure. When the footage ended, she stood again. "They want to play by their rules," she said quietly. 3,000 years of civilized warfare. Honor duels between fleets. Conquest by intimidation. She turned to face her advisors. "They have no idea what they've just unleashed." General Torres activated a secure communication link. "All units, this is command. Execute Protocol 7. Repeat. Execute Protocol 7. Across human space, hidden bases came online. Stealth ships that had been drifting silently in asteroid fields powered up their systems. Sleeper agents embedded in neutral. Systems activated their equipment. The real war was about to begin. Dr. Hawthorne pulled up holographic displays showing human psychological profiles versus alien behavioral patterns. "They expect us to surrender now, to beg for mercy and accept their terms. Every species they've conquered has followed this pattern." "But we're not every species," Chen replied. "We're human. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know what total war looks like." In the depths of Cheyenne Mountain, technicians began uploading combat algorithms to drone swarms hidden throughout hegemony space. Each drone was no larger than a baseball, equipped with fusion charges and basic AI targeting systems. They had been placed months ago by human merchants and explorers, who the aliens had dismissed as harmless. The Zephyrian fleet was already departing New Geneva, confident in their victory. Admiral Vorthak composed his report to the Hegemony Council, describing the successful demonstration of power. He expected humanity's surrender within days. Instead, he received a single transmission from Earth. No video, just audio. President Chen's voice was calm and steady. "You wanted war. You burned our world and murdered our people. You call us primitive, but you've made one critical error in judgment." There was a pause, filled only with static. "You assume we fight, like you do. You're about to learn why that assumption will destroy you." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, no one on the Hegemony flagship understood the significance of those words. They would learn soon enough. Admiral Vorthak expected the human surrender message within 48 hours. Instead, the first sign something was wrong came from the outer patrol ships in the Rigel system. 3 Hegemony corvettes simply vanished from sensors. No distress signals, no weapons fire detected, no debris fields. They were there one moment and gone the next. Technical malfunction, declared Commander Zelith when the reports reached the flagship. Perhaps their communications arrays failed, simultaneously, but the disappearances continued. A supply convoy bound for the frontier base at Tau Ceti never arrived. A reconnaissance squadron sent to investigate the missing corvettes also went silent. Within a week, 14 hegemony vessels had vanished without explanation. High Admiral Korvax called an emergency session of the Hegemony War Council on the capital world of Zephyr Prime. The 12 species representatives gathered in the crystal chamber that had seen 3 millennia of victories. Today, confusion replaced the usual confidence. "How does a primitive species make our ships disappear?" demanded General Threx of the Mantid Collective, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "They have no technology we haven't seen before. Our sensors detected nothing." Ambassador Kalara activated the holographic display showing recent fleet movements. Red markers indicated missing vessels scattered across 1,000 light-years of space. "Perhaps they developed some form of stealth technology?" "Impossible," replied Admiral Korvax. "Our deep space scanners can detect a grain of sand at 10,000 kilometers. No stealth system could hide entire ships." On the bridge of the stealth corvette Shadow Dancer, Captain Lisa Park watched the Hegemony patrol through her passive sensors. The alien ships moved in textbook formation, broadcasting their positions on open frequencies like they were advertising. Their location. She almost felt sorry for them. "Target the lead destroyer," she whispered to her tactical officer. "Quantum torpedoes, minimum yield. Make it look like a reactor failure." The torpedoes were invisible to conventional sensors, their quantum signatures masked by specially designed field generators. They struck the Hegemony vessel's engine section with surgical precision. To outside observers, the ship's fusion reactor had simply overloaded. There was no evidence of attack, no weapon signature to trace. "Target eliminated," reported the tactical officer. "No survivors detected." "Good. Mark this position and move to grid 77 Alpha. The supply ship should be passing through in 6 hours." This was the new human doctrine. Ghost warfare. Small, invisible ships striking without warning and vanishing before anyone could respond. Every attack was designed to look like an accident or mechanical failure. The Hegemony had no idea they were under assault. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked in the captured technology lab beneath Luna City. Around her, teams of human engineers and scientists dissected alien equipment with the enthusiasm of children taking apart toys. What they found amazed and disappointed them in equal measure. "Their weapons are incredibly advanced," she reported to General Torres via encrypted link. "Plasma containment systems were decades from matching, but their targeting computers are primitive by our standards. They rely entirely on direct sensor contact." What about their armor? Impressive against energy weapons, but designed for ship-to-ship combat. They never considered threats like nanite infiltration or quantum disruption. She held up a piece of alien hull plating. "This stuff can withstand gigaton-level explosions, but it fails completely when its molecular bonds are destabilized." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh, a junior communications officer, was monitoring Hegemony transmissions when she noticed something odd in their quantum encryption patterns. The aliens used the same base algorithms for all their communications, changing only the cipher keys. "It's like they're using the same lock for every door," she explained to the intelligence team. "They just change which key opens it. But if you can crack the lock mechanism itself." Within days, human cryptographers had broken the Hegemony's communications. Every military order, every fleet movement, every strategic discussion was now an open book. The aliens were planning their operations in perfect detail, then broadcasting them to human intelligence. Admiral Vorthak received orders to investigate the missing ships personally. His task force of 50 vessels jumped to the Kepler 442 system, where the disappearances had started. They found nothing but empty space and the cooling remains of New Geneva. "Deploy sensor drones throughout the system," he commanded. If the humans have some kind of hidden base here, we'll find it. The drones spread out in a careful search pattern, their powerful scanners probing every asteroid and gas cloud. They found the human base exactly where the intelligence report said it would be hidden inside the asteroid designated KP-4427. What they didn't find were any humans. The base appears abandoned, reported the sensor operator. Life support is minimal. Most systems are powered down. Take us closer. Prepare boarding parties. The Star's Judgment moved toward the asteroid base, followed by 2 heavy cruisers. Standard doctrine called for surrounding the target and demanding surrender. The hegemony had perfected this approach over centuries of conquest. Captain Maria Santos watched from her hiding place inside KP-44212, an asteroid on the opposite side of the system. Her ship, the stealth destroyer Wraith, had been waiting here for 3 days with a full load of experimental weapons. "They're taking the bait," she reported to her tactical team. "All 3 ships are focused on the decoy base. Beginning attack. Run." The Wraith accelerated toward the hegemony formation, using a trajectory that would keep the asteroids between them and the enemy sensors. At 50,000 kilometers, she launched her entire payload of quantum mines in visible spheres of contained antimatter that would detonate when alien ships passed through them. Admiral Vorthak was reviewing the boarding reports when his flagship shuddered. Emergency klaxons wailed as explosions rippled along the hull. The ship next to them, the cruiser Domination, simply vanished in a ball of white fire. "What happened?" he demanded. "Where did that attack come from?" "Unknown, Admiral. Sensors show no enemy vessels. The mines appeared from nowhere." A second wave of explosions crippled the remaining cruiser. The Star's Judgment found itself alone, surrounded by expanding clouds of debris that had once been his escort ships. Emergency systems struggled to repair hull breaches, while the crew fought fires in 3 different sections. All ships. Emergency. "Jump!" Vorthak ordered. "Return to base immediately!" But the jump drives wouldn't engage. Unknown to the Admiral, human nanites had infiltrated his ship's systems during the months of peaceful contact before the war. Now they were systematically disrupting critical components, making escape impossible. The Wraith decloaked directly in front of the crippled flagship. Captain Santos opened a communication channel, her face appearing on Vorthak's command screen. "Admiral, Vorthak of the Zephyrian Hegemony," she said formally. "You are guilty of crimes against humanity, specifically the genocide of New Geneva Colony. This tribunal finds you guilty. Sentence is death. You cannot execute prisoners of war." Vorthak protested. "There are rules, conventions." Santos smiled coldly. "Your people wrote those rules. We never agreed to them. Besides, you're not prisoners of war. You're war criminals." The final torpedo struck the Star's Judgment's command section. The explosion was visible from the outer planets of the Kepler 442 system. Back on Zephyr Prime, the War Council struggled to understand what was happening. Their most experienced admiral was dead, along with his entire task force. The humans had somehow turned an investigation into a massacre. "They fight without honor," complained General Threx. "No formal challenges, no fleet engagements, no opportunity for surrender. They strike from shadows like assassins." "Perhaps," said Admiral Korvax slowly. "We underestimated these humans. Their military doctrine is unlike anything we've encountered. Ambassador Kalara activated new star charts showing human colony locations. Our intelligence suggests they've evacuated all civilian populations from the outer systems. Every human world we've scanned shows minimal life signs." "Cowardice," declared General Threx. "They abandon their people to save themselves." "Or," Korvax replied, studying the tactical displays, "they're removing targets we can threaten while preparing for a different kind of war entirely." The reports continued to flow in. Supply convoys attacked by invisible ships, patrol fleets disappearing without warning, communication arrays throughout hegemony space failing mysteriously. The humans weren't fighting a war of conquest or defense. They were fighting a war of extinction. Dr. Vasquez made another breakthrough in the Luna labs. The captured hegemony AI systems were remarkably sophisticated but also remarkably trusting. They had been designed for a galaxy where warfare followed established rules and nobody tried to corrupt enemy computers. "We can insert virus programs directly into their command networks," she reported. "Their security protocols assume all quantum encrypted. Data is safe. They never check for malicious code hidden in routine communications." General Torres nodded grimly. "Upload the package. Target their navigation systems first. I want their fleets lost in space before they figure out what's happening." Across hegemony territory, ships began suffering navigation failures. High Admiral Korvax stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime. The marble chambers that had once echoed with confident declarations now buzzed with nervous whispers. Representatives from dozens of species watched the hegemony's military leader with growing concern. "Esteemed council members," Korvax began, his voice strained from weeks of sleepless planning. "The Zephyrian hegemony formally requests military assistance in dealing with the human threat. In 60 days of conflict, we have lost over 300 vessels and 12 major installations." Councillor Vex of the Altair Federation leaned forward. "You're asking for help against a species you claimed was primitive? A species that achieved spaceflight only 2 centuries ago?" "The humans fight without honor," Korvax replied. "They use stealth technology, sabotage, and psychological warfare. They target civilian infrastructure and refuse formal engagement. This is not war as civilized species understand it." Ambassador Yeath of the Tau Ceti Republic exchanged glances with her neighbors. "Perhaps the hegemony should have considered the consequences before attacking their colonies." "We followed standard protocols for territorial disputes," Korvax protested. "One demonstration of force, followed by demands for compliance. Every species in the galaxy has accepted this approach for millennia." "Except humans," observed Councillor Vex dryly. "The request for aid was quietly declined by every major power. Not because they supported humanity, but because they recognized something the hegemony refused to acknowledge. The humans were winning." In the secure command center beneath Earth's surface, President Chen studied the intelligence reports with her senior staff. Intercepted hegemony communications showed increasing desperation among their leadership. Their fleets were scattered across half the galaxy, many of them lost or crippled by navigation viruses. "Phase 2 is proceeding ahead of schedule," reported General Torres. "Their supply lines are completely disrupted. Most of their frontier bases are operating on emergency reserves." Dr. Hawthorne activated a holographic display showing hegemony fleet positions. "They're trying to consolidate their forces, but our intelligence network is feeding them false information about our ship movements. Every time they redeploy to counter a threat, they find empty space." "What about civilian populations?" Chen asked. "Our psychological warfare teams are broadcasting continuously on all hegemony frequencies. We're showing them footage of their burning fleets, playing recordings of their commanders' final transmissions, broadcasting lists of missing ships. Morale is collapsing throughout their territory." The broadcasts were devastating to hegemony morale. For 3,000 years, their military had been invincible. Citizens across 12 worlds had grown up believing their fleets could defeat any threat. Now they watched helplessly as ship after ship vanished into the void. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded the stealth frigate Ghost Ship in the Vega system, home to one of the hegemony's major shipyards. Her mission was simple: cripple their ability to build new vessels. The approach, however, was anything but conventional. "Nanite deployment complete," reported her science officer. "The swarm has infiltrated their construction facilities through the waste recycling systems." The nanites were too small for hegemony sensors to detect individual units, but programmed to multiply rapidly once inside enemy installations. They would consume raw materials, corrupt computer systems, and introduce microscopic flaws into every component they touched. Ships built in infected yards would fail catastrophically within weeks of launch. Phase 2 of the nanite program is ready for deployment, the science officer continued. Atmospheric dispersal nanites designed for Zephyrian biology. Rodriguez hesitated. The atmospheric nanites represented a line humanity had never crossed. They would target the aliens' respiratory systems, making their home worlds uninhabitable for the native populations. It was genocide on a planetary scale. Hold that program for now, she decided. Command hasn't authorized biological warfare yet. Yet, repeated the science officer quietly. On Zephyr Prime, Ambassador Kalara met with the Hegemony's inner council in an underground bunker. The capital city above them showed signs of growing panic as news of military disasters spread despite government censorship. Riots had broken out in 3 industrial districts, with citizens demanding answers about their missing fleets. We need to consider negotiation, suggested Admiral Urith of the Crystalline Assembly. Perhaps if we offered to return their destroyed colony, paid compensation. Negotiation? Kalara's 4 arms gestured in dismay. With primitives who ignore every rule of civilized warfare, they've proven they cannot be trusted to honor agreements. They've proven they can destroy us, Urith countered. Our intelligence estimates suggest they have weapons we don't understand, tactics we cannot counter, and technology that turns our own systems against us. General Threx slammed his clawed hand on the conference table. I refuse to surrender. To mammals who learned to use fire while our ancestors were building star cities. Your pride may destroy us all, Urith replied. Perhaps we should have learned from the mammals instead of dismissing them. The argument was interrupted by an aide rushing into the chamber. Generals, we've lost contact with the Centauri defense. Fleet, all 18 ships went dark simultaneously during a routine patrol. Kalara felt her composure crack slightly. The Centauri fleet was one of their most powerful formations, equipped with the latest technology and commanded by experienced officers. Its loss meant the humans had capability far beyond what anyone had imagined. The truth was even worse than they knew. Captain Michael Chen commanded the experimental ship Prometheus, equipped with humanity's first working quantum displacement drive. Unlike traditional faster-than-light travel, quantum displacement allowed a ship to exist in multiple locations simultaneously until the wave function collapsed. Target the flagship, Chen ordered his tactical team. Full spread of quantum torpedoes. Let's see how their shields handle weapons that don't actually exist until they hit. The attack was devastating. The Hegemony ships detected incoming missiles on their sensors, but the weapons phased in and out of reality as they approached. Point defense systems couldn't target projectiles that existed in quantum superposition. The torpedoes materialized inside the enemy ships' hulls, bypassing shields and armor entirely. 18 ships died in less than 30 seconds. The Prometheus vanished back into quantum flux before the explosions had finished expanding. Dr. Vasquez made another breakthrough in the Luna laboratories. Her team had finally cracked the Hegemony's central command protocols, the quantum-encrypted signals that coordinated their entire military structure. We can insert false orders directly into their command network, she explained to General Torres, via hologram. Their admirals will receive what appear to be legitimate commands from higher authority. What kind of orders? Anything we want. Fleet movements, tactical deployments, even surrender instructions. As far as their systems can tell, the commands are coming from their own leadership. Torres smiled grimly. Upload the confusion protocol. I want their fleets attacking each other within the hour. The false orders spread through Hegemony networks like a virus. Admiral Korvax received instructions to intercept what appeared to be a human fleet in the Sirius system, while Admiral Yorth was told to defend the same system against Hegemony rebels. When the 2 fleets met, each believed the other was the enemy. The battle lasted 6 hours and left both formations crippled. Only after analyzing the wreckage did Hegemony intelligence realize they had been manipulated into fighting themselves. The revelation shattered what remained of their confidence in their own command structure. Back on Earth, President Chen received updates on Operation Mirrorfall, the systematic corruption of hegemony military networks. Phase 3 was ready to begin the complete takeover of enemy communications and the introduction of false intelligence designed to fragment their alliance. The 12 species are starting to question the war, reported CIA Director Sarah Walsh. Our intercepts show 3 species considering separate peace negotiations. Any response from hegemony leadership? They've gone completely silent on external communications. Either they're planning something desperate, or they're paralyzed by indecision. General Torres activated a new set of tactical displays showing human fleet positions. Our stealth squadrons are in position around all 12 hegemony homeworlds. We could end this war in a single coordinated strike. Chen studied the displays thoughtfully. Red markers showed the locations of hidden human ships, each one carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. The hegemony still didn't know how. Many vessels humanity had deployed, or where they were positioned. Not yet, she decided. They wanted to teach us a lesson about respecting our betters. Let's make sure they learn something about underestimating humans instead. The psychological pressure was working exactly as planned. Hegemony citizens were fleeing their frontier worlds, creating massive refugee problems in the core systems. Military recruitment had dropped to 0 as young aliens refused to join fleets that seemed to vanish into space. Several member species were quietly pulling their ships back to defend their home worlds. On Zephyr Prime, riots spread from the industrial districts to the emergency session of the Zephyrian Hegemony High Council convened in the deepest bunker of Zephyr Prime, 5 kilometers beneath the planet's surface. The 12 species representatives arrived under heavy guard, their usual confident demeanor replaced by barely concealed fear. The war was entering its 4th month, and their position grew more desperate with each passing day. Admiral Korvax stood before a holographic display showing the current state of hegemony space. Nearly 60% of their territory was marked in red, indicating either lost contact or confirmed human presence. Their once mighty fleet had been reduced to scattered formations, hiding in remote systems. "The situation is critical," he announced, his voice hoarse from stress. "We have lost over 800 vessels, 47 installations, and contact with 16 colonies. Our supply lines are completely severed. Most of our frontier worlds are operating on emergency reserves." General Threx of the Mantid Collective clicked his mandibles in agitation. "How is this possible? They are a single species barely 2 centuries old. Our intelligence estimates put their total fleet at no more than 500 ships. "Our intelligence was wrong," replied Admiral Urith of the Crystalline Assembly. Her translucent form flickered with nervous energy. "The humans have deployed technologies we didn't know existed. Stealth systems that defeat our best sensors, weapons that ignore our defenses, cyber warfare that turns our own computers against us." Ambassador Kalara activated additional displays showing intercepted human communications. "They're not just fighting us. They're dismantling our entire civilization. Every system we depend on, every advantage we thought we had, they've found a way to neutralize or corrupt. The most disturbing reports came from their intelligence networks. Human agents had infiltrated nearly every level of hegemony society, some of them operating for years before the war began. They had learned alien languages, studied their cultures, identified key weaknesses, and positioned themselves to strike when the moment came. "They knew this was coming," said Admiral Korvax quietly. "They've been preparing for war with us since first contact. Everything they've done, every diplomatic overture, every trade agreement, it was all intelligence gathering. The truth was even more comprehensive than they imagined." Dr. Elena Rodriguez briefed President Chen from the Mars Command Center, where human strategists had spent 2 years planning for exactly this scenario. "The hegemony operates on the assumption that all spacefaring species think like they do," she explained. They expect formal declarations, fleet engagements, territorial exchanges, and eventual negotiated settlements. They have no protocols for dealing with an enemy that refuses to follow their rules. General Torres activated tactical displays showing Phase 4 preparations. Their leadership is fragmenting. 3 species have already started independent peace negotiations through neutral intermediaries. The others are pulling their forces back to defend their home worlds. Any response to our demands? Chen asked. Radio silence from official channels, but our intelligence assets report that Ambassador Kalara has been meeting privately with several council members. They're considering our terms. The terms had been broadcast throughout hegemony space 3 days earlier, transmitted on every frequency and in every major language. They were simple and non-negotiable: complete surrender of all military forces, dissolution of the hegemony government, and submission to human authority for war crimes tribunals. The message had included detailed footage of destroyed hegemony, ships, lists of missing personnel, and recordings of final transmissions from doomed vessels. The psychological impact was devastating. Citizens across 12 worlds demanded their leaders explain how a primitive species had brought their mighty civilization to its knees. Captain Sarah Martinez commanded the stealth battleship Nemesis in the Wolf 359 system, where hegemony forces were attempting to establish a new defensive line. Her orders were clear: demonstrate that nowhere in their territory was safe from human reach. "Target the command station," she ordered her tactical officer. "Full spread of quantum penetrator missiles. Make sure their entire fleet sees this." The missiles were a new development from the Luna laboratories, designed to phase through matter at the quantum level before materializing inside enemy hulls. Shields, armor, even solid rock meant nothing to weapons that existed in superposition until the moment of impact. The hegemony command station was a massive structure, heavily defended and surrounded by 3 full battle groups. It represented the aliens' last attempt to coordinate their scattered forces and mount an effective resistance. The station died in seconds. The quantum missiles materialized inside its central core, where the fusion reactors and command computers were located. The explosion lit up the system like a newborn star visible from the outer planets. The surviving hegemony ships scattered in all directions, their formation shattered by the impossible sight of their strongest fortress simply ceasing to exist. Many jumped to random coordinates, preferring the risk of getting lost in space to remaining in a system where death could strike without warning. On Zephyr Prime, the High Council watched footage of the Wolf 359 attack in stunned silence. Their most advanced defensive position had been eliminated without the humans even revealing their attacking ship. The Nemesis had fired from stealth and vanished back into quantum flux before the explosion finished expanding. "We cannot fight enemies we cannot see," Admiral Korvac said quietly. "They appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and disappear before we can respond. This is not warfare. This is extermination." Ambassador Kalara stood before the display showing casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of military personnel dead or missing, entire fleets simply gone, colonies abandoned as their populations fled toward the core worlds. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "we should consider the human terms." The council chamber erupted in angry protests. General Threx rose to his full height, his razor-sharp claws extended. "Surrender to primitives? Accept judgment from mammals who were building mud huts when our civilization reached the stars?" "Those mammals are destroying us," Kalara replied. "They have turned our technology against us, shattered our fleets, and made our space unsafe. For our own vessels, what exactly do you propose we do?" "Fight!" Threx declared. "Mobilize every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. Show them the true power of the hegemony." Admiral Urith flickered with what might have been laughter. "With what ships? What soldiers? The humans have been systematically eliminating our military for 4 months. Most of our remaining forces are trapped in their home systems, afraid to venture into open space." The debate continued for hours, but the underlying reality was inescapable. The Zephyrian hegemony, masters of the galaxy for 3,000 years, had been outmaneuvered and outfought by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Their choice now was between negotiated surrender and complete annihilation. The psychological warfare campaign reached its peak with Operation Mirror Break. Human hackers working with captured alien AI systems began broadcasting fabricated news reports throughout hegemony space. The reports showed fake surrenders by military commanders, fictional peace agreements between individual species and Earth, and carefully edited footage suggesting that several hegemony worlds had already fallen to human occupation. The false information spread faster than official denials could counter it. Panic gripped the core worlds as citizens believed their own forces were surrendering without orders. Military units began deserting rather than fight what appeared to be a hopeless war. Several planetary governors declared unilateral ceasefires and attempted to negotiate separate peace treaties. Captain Lisa Park received new orders while conducting surveillance of the Rigel system. Her stealth corvette had been tracking hegemony fleet movements for weeks, but now command wanted something more dramatic. "Deploy the stellar disruptor," came the encrypted message. "Target the system's primary star. Let them see what we can do to their homeworlds." The stellar disruptor was humanity's most terrifying weapon, a device that could destabilize a star's fusion reactions and cause it to go supernova. It had never been used in combat, but the threat alone might be enough to force surrender. Park hesitated before confirming the orders. Using such a weapon would make humanity as guilty of genocide as they accused the hegemony of being. But the war had already crossed too many lines to stop now. "Deploying disruptor probe," she reported. "Target star will reach critical instability in 72 hours. The probe was launched toward Rigel's chromosphere, where it would burrow deep into the star's interior and begin disrupting the delicate balance of forces that kept fusion reactions stable. Once activated, the process could not be stopped or reversed. News of the stellar disruptor reached Zephyr Prime within hours, carried by the same intelligence networks that had served humanity so well throughout the war. The High Council reconvened in emergency session, but this time their debate was brief. "They can destroy our stars," Admiral Korvac said simply. "They can make our suns explode and kill entire systems. There is no defense against such weapons." Ambassador Kalara looked around the chamber at representatives of. The surrender ceremony took place in the ruins of the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The marble halls that had once echoed with the confident voices of the hegemony leadership now stood empty, except for human security forces and a handful of alien officials waiting to sign their civilization's death warrant. President Chen arrived aboard the flagship Retribution, accompanied by the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 3,000 vessels filled the space around Nexus Prime, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of a species that had gone from first contact to galactic dominance in less than 6 months. Ambassador Kalara stood at the surrender table, her forearms trembling as she prepared to sign documents that would dissolve the government she had served for over a century. Around her, representatives of the other 11 species waited their turn to formally submit to human authority. Though, Zephyrian hegemony hereby surrenders all military forces, all territorial claims, and all governmental authority to the United Earth Coalition, Chen read from the prepared statement. All military personnel will be processed for war crimes evaluation. All civilian populations will be relocated or integrated according to human determination. Kalara's signature was barely legible, her hand shaking too badly to maintain proper control. One by one, the other representatives followed, each one formally ending thousands of years of their species' independence. General Torres stood beside the table, watching the ceremony with grim satisfaction. Occupation fleets report all major systems are secure. No resistance encountered. Their remaining military forces have been impounded and their crews are being processed. The processing was swift and efficient. Human teams had spent months preparing for this moment, identifying key personnel throughout the hegemony government and military. War crimes tribunals had already been established on 12 different worlds, ready to begin trials immediately. Admiral Korvax was among the first to face judgment. He stood in the dock of the tribunal ship Justice, surrounded by human guards and facing a panel of judges who had studied every action he had taken during the war. Admiral Korvax of the Zephyrian Navy, Judge Patricia Williams read from the charges. You are accused of ordering the genocide of New Geneva Colony, resulting in the deaths of 200,000 human civilians. You are also charged with conspiracy to commit further genocidal acts against human populations throughout the galaxy. Korvax maintained his dignity, despite the restraints around his wrists. I followed standard military protocols for territorial disputes. The attack on New Geneva was a demonstration of force designed to prevent further conflict. By murdering innocent civilians? Williams replied. By burning an entire world to make a point about your superiority? We offered terms for surrender. Your species chose defiance. Williams activated a holographic display showing footage from New Geneva. Children's playgrounds turned to glass. Schools melted by plasma fire. Civilian shelters collapsed by orbital bombardment. Did these children choose defiance? Did these families pose a military threat to your mighty hegemony? The trial lasted 3 days. Korvax was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life imprisonment on a prison world in the former hegemony territory. Similar tribunals processed thousands of military officers and government officials, sorting them into categories based on their level of responsibility for the war. Meanwhile, the integration process began for civilian populations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the cultural assessment teams that would determine the fate of billions of aliens across 12 worlds. Each species presents unique challenges, she reported to President Chen from the Mobile Command Center orbiting Zephyr Prime. The Mantid Collective has a warrior culture that may be incompatible with peaceful integration. The Crystalline Assembly seems more adaptable, but their technology dependence makes them potential security risks. The choice offered to each individual was simple but absolute. Accept complete integration into human society, including adoption of human laws, languages, and cultural norms, or accept relocation to designated reservation worlds where they could maintain their traditional ways under human supervision. Most chose integration. The alternative was exile to primitive conditions on worlds where technology would be limited to pre-industrial levels. For species that had known spaceflight for millennia, the choice was clear, even if painful. The integration process was thorough and unforgiving. Alien children were enrolled in human schools where they learned Earth languages and human history. Adults underwent cultural orientation programs that taught them to function in a society where humans held all positions of authority. Some adapted quickly. Ambassador Kalara herself proved surprisingly effective at helping her people transition to human rule. She worked with integration teams to identify aliens who could serve in administrative roles under human supervision. Others resisted. General Threx of the Mantid Collective was among those who chose exile rather than submit to human authority. He was transported to Kepler 438b, a marginally habitable world designated as a reservation for unrepentant aliens. You may have won the war, he declared as human guards escorted him to the transport ship. But you will never break our spirit. We will remember who we were before you came. The transport captain, a veteran of the stealth war, shrugged indifferently. Remember, all you want. Your children will be human citizens, speaking human languages, following human laws. In 50 years, your spirit will be a footnote in history books. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. Hegemony industrial facilities were converted to serve human needs, producing goods and materials for the expanding Earth civilization. Alien workers operated the factories under human management, their former independence replaced by directed productivity. Trade routes that had once connected proud alien empires now carried human merchants and human goods. The galactic economy was restructured around Earth's needs and Earth's priorities. Former hegemony worlds became suppliers of raw materials and agricultural products for the growing human colonial empire. Dr. Rodriguez presented her final assessment to the Colonial Administration Council 6 months after the surrender. Integration success rates vary by species, but overall compliance is at 93%. The few holdouts are either in custody awaiting trial or have been relocated to reservation worlds. President Chen reviewed the statistics from her office in the new Colonial Administration building constructed on the site of the former Hegemony Council chambers. Through her windows, she could see the busy spaceport where human ships came and went with the efficiency of a species that now ruled half the known galaxy. "What about resistance movements?" she asked. "Minimal and decreasing. Our intelligence networks have identified most of the potential troublemakers. Those who might organize rebellion are either imprisoned, exiled, or under constant surveillance. The rest are too busy adapting to their new circumstances." The transformation was visible everywhere. Former hegemony worlds now flew human flags and operated under human law. Alien languages were becoming extinct as younger generations learned only human speech. Traditional alien culture survived only in carefully monitored reservation communities or in historical archives. Captain Sarah Martinez, now Admiral Martinez and commander of the Colonial Security Force, filed her monthly report from her flagship, patrolling the former hegemony border regions. No significant resistance activity detected. Former military personnel appear to have accepted their new status. Civilian populations are adapting to human administration faster than projected. The speed of the transformation surprised even human planners. They had expected years of guerrilla warfare, terrorist attacks, and cultural resistance. Instead, they found a population that seemed almost relieved to be free of the burden of governing themselves. "They ruled for 3,000 years, explained Dr. Elena Vasquez, now head of the Colonial Psychology Department. But they ruled through fear and military force. When that force was broken, they had nothing left to hold their civilization together. Many of them actually seem happier under human authority." The psychological impact of total defeat had broken more than just military resistance. It had shattered the alien belief in their own superiority, their right to rule, their very identity as dominant species. Faced with evidence of human superiority in every field, from warfare to technology to administration, many aliens genuinely came to believe they were better off as subjects than as failed rulers. 5 years after the surrender, the former Zephyrian hegemony existed only in history books. The 12 species had been scattered across hundreds of human colonies, integrated into Earth society, or confined to reservation worlds. Their languages were dying, their cultures preserved only in museums, their independence a memory held by aging generations who remembered the old days. President Chen, now serving her second term as leader of the United Galactic Republic, delivered her annual State of the Galaxy address from the Capitol building on New Geneva. The world that had been glassed by alien fire now served as the symbolic heart of human galactic civilization. 5 years ago, alien powers attempted to teach humanity its place in the galactic order, she said to the assembled representatives of over 4.
Commander Olivia Summers stared at the radar screen, her eyes fixed on the strange blip that shouldn't be there. She had been patrolling Saturn's rings for 3 years now, and she knew every scheduled ship and satellite in this sector. This was something new. "Jack, are you seeing this?" she called to her second-in-command. Lieutenant Commander Jack Barnes moved closer to her station. His weathered face showed concern as he studied the readings. "Yes, ma'am. Whatever it is, it's huge, and it's not broadcasting any identification signal." The United North American Space Command outpost near Saturn was one of Earth's farthest military installations. Built after the Global Space Treaty of 2041, it served as both a research station and a defensive outpost. Olivia had been proud to receive this command, even if most of her days consisted of routine patrols and scientific support missions. "Send a standard greeting on all frequencies," she ordered, "and alert Earth Command." Jack nodded and started typing commands into his console. The rest of the bridge crew worked with focused efficiency, though Olivia could sense their nervousness. The anomaly grew larger on their screens. At first, Olivia thought it might be an asteroid or comet that had somehow escaped detection. But, as their sensors gathered more data, she realized this object was moving with purpose. "Commander," said the communications officer Susan Bailey, her voice shaking slightly, "we're receiving a response. It's not in any language I recognize." "Put it through the translation system," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady. A strange series of clicks and whistles filled the bridge. Everyone froze, listening to the first confirmed alien communication in human history. After a tense minute, the computer's translation program produced its best guess. "Stand by for approach. No defensive posture required." Olivia and Jack exchanged looks. The implications were enormous. Not only were these visitors intelligent and capable of interstellar travel, but they also seemed to understand human military protocols. "Should we arm weapons systems?" Jack asked quietly. Olivia considered their options. Her military training suggested caution, but firing on an unknown entity that clearly outclassed them technologically seemed like suicide. "No, but keep all systems ready." She activated the station-wide comm. "All personnel, this is Commander Summers. We have made contact with what appears to be an extraterrestrial vessel. This is not a drill. Report to emergency stations and await further instructions." Within minutes, the anomaly resolved itself on their view screens. The alien ship was enormous, at least 3 miles long, with a sleek design that reminded Olivia of ancient sea creatures from Earth. It glowed with a faint blue light and showed no visible weapons or propulsion systems. "They're hailing us again," Susan reported. This time the message was in perfect English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Consortium. We come in peace and with great interest in your developing civilization. 3. Days later, Olivia found herself in an uncomfortable seat at the United Nations headquarters in New York. After the initial contact, events had moved with shocking speed. The aliens, who called themselves the Arcturians, had requested a meeting with Earth's leaders, and the major world powers had scrambled to present a unified front. Ambassador Xerix of the Arcturians stood at the podium. He looked almost human, except for his blue-tinted skin and eyes that were slightly too large. He wore something that resembled a uniform with symbols Olivia couldn't decipher. "We have observed your planet for many years," Xerix explained, his voice oddly melodic. "The Galactic Consortium consists of over 300 intelligent species, united in peaceful exploration and mutual benefit. We believe Earth is ready for limited contact and exchange." The UN Secretary-General, a tall woman from Nigeria, asked the question on everyone's mind. "What are your intentions toward Earth?" Xerix smiled, showing teeth that were perfectly white and straight. "Only friendship. We have much to share with developing worlds. However, we must assess each new civilization carefully. Over the next week, teams of Arcturians met with Earth's military leaders, scientists, and political representatives. They examined human technology, asked countless questions about Earth's history, and conducted what they called standard evaluations of human capabilities. Olivia, now temporarily stationed at the UN as a liaison due to her first contact status, watched these interactions with growing unease. The aliens were unfailingly polite, but something about their attitude bothered her. They seemed condescending, like adults humoring children. "I don't trust them," Jack said quietly as they observed an Arcturian examining Earth's latest quantum computer. They had worked together for years, and Olivia valued his instincts. "Because they're aliens?" she asked. "Because they're too perfect," he replied. "No conflicts, no disagreements among themselves. It's not natural." On the 10th day after first contact, the Arcturians called for a formal meeting at the UN. Ambassador Xerix stood before the assembled world leaders and announced their findings. "After careful consideration, the Galactic Consortium has classified Earth as a Level 2 civilization with low threat potential," he stated. "This classification allows us to begin limited cultural and technological exchanges while observing your continued development. A murmur ran through the crowd. Olivia leaned forward, listening intently. Low threat potential? The United States. President asked. What exactly does that mean? Xerx's smile never reached his eyes. It means your species poses no significant danger to the greater galactic community. Your technology is rudimentary by our standards, your military capabilities are limited to your solar system, and your resource management is inefficient. However, you show promise, and with proper guidance, Earth may one day advance to level 3 status. Olivia felt her face grow hot with indignation. The aliens were essentially patting Earth on the head, telling them they were harmless and backward. From the expressions around her, many of the world's leaders felt the same. Nevertheless, most governments welcomed the chance to learn from an advanced civilization. The Arcturians established an embassy in Geneva and began sharing carefully selected knowledge about space travel, medicine, and energy production. 1 month after first contact, Olivia received new orders. She had been promoted to admiral and would oversee Earth's first joint space security initiative with the Arcturians. She should have been thrilled, but as she packed her things, she couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was making a terrible mistake. They think we're harmless, she said to Jack as they prepared to leave for their new assignment. They've labeled us a low threat. Jack nodded grimly. Let's hope they're right, for their sake. Neither of them could have imagined that just 6 months later, the mighty galactic consortium would fall silent, and Earth's low-threat status would become the galaxy's last hope. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Olivia Summers stood at the large window of her new office, watching Earth slowly rotate below the joint human-Arcturian space station. The view was breathtaking, but she barely noticed it anymore. Her mind was on the growing list of strange events that nobody seemed willing to discuss. The communication screen on her desk beeped. Dr. Gregory Williams wanted to speak with her urgently. Olivia had assigned the xenolinguistics specialist to work closely with the aliens, hoping his expertise in language patterns might reveal insights about their true intentions. Send him in, she told her assistant. Gregory entered looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and he clutched a data tablet tightly in his hands. Admiral, thank you for seeing me, he said, his voice low. I needed to talk to someone with proper clearance. Something's wrong with our Arcturian friends. Olivia gestured for him to sit. Explain. For the past 3 weeks, I've been analyzing their communication patterns. The Arcturians we first met spoke in complex, nuanced ways. Their language was rich with cultural references and idioms. Gregory placed his tablet on her desk and pulled up several audio files. But listen to Ambassador Xerx from yesterday. The recording played. Xerx's voice was the same, but something was different. His speech was simpler, more direct, almost mechanical. They're changing, Gregory continued. Not just their language, but their behavior too. The embassy staff rotates regularly, but the new arrivals are different. Olivia had noticed it too. The first Arcturians had been condescending but engaging. The newer ones seemed distracted, sometimes even nervous. Have you reported this to anyone else? She asked. I tried telling the UN liaison, but he thinks I'm overreacting. Gregory ran a hand through his hair. There's more. The Arcturians have stopped sharing new technology. They promised medical advancements last month, but nothing came. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Jack Barnes, now a full commander under Olivia's leadership, appeared on her screen. Admiral, we've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the solar system, he reported. 3 unknown objects just appeared near Neptune's orbit. I'm on my way, Olivia said, standing quickly. She looked at Gregory. Keep monitoring their communications. Record everything. When Olivia reached the command center, the large screens showed 3 ships approaching. They were definitely consortium vessels, but they moved erratically, like wounded animals. Have you contacted them? She asked Jack. Yes, ma'am. They're claiming they encountered space anomalies during routine patrols. They're requesting permission to dock for repairs. Ambassador Xerx arrived moments later. His usually perfect appearance was slightly disheveled, and he seemed tense. "These are supply ships," he explained smoothly. "Nothing to concern yourself with. The anomalies they encountered are common in deep space." Olivia studied his face. "These ships show battle damage, Ambassador. Our sensors detect weapon signatures." Xerx's expression didn't change, but his large eyes blinked rapidly. "Your sensors must be mistaken. We will handle this matter." After he left, Jack moved closer to Olivia. "He's lying," he whispered. "I know." Olivia watched the damaged ships approach. "Something's happening out there, and they don't want us to know what it is." Over the next few weeks, more consortium ships arrived in Earth's orbit. All showed signs of damage, and all came with the same vague explanation about space anomalies. Earth's leaders were growing concerned, but most were hesitant to challenge the technologically superior aliens. Lisa Chen, one of Earth's brilliant quantum physicists, had been studying the Arcturian communication technology since first contact. Olivia had assigned her to the joint research team, hoping she might find vulnerabilities in case things went bad. Lisa requested a private meeting with Olivia and Jack, away from the Arcturians' monitoring systems. "I've discovered something about their communication network," Lisa explained, showing them complex diagrams on her secure tablet. "It operates using quantum entanglement principles, but with a unique pattern I've never seen before." "What does that mean in simple terms?" Jack asked. "Their entire empire is connected through an instantaneous communication web. It's incredibly efficient, but I think it might have a fundamental weakness." Lisa pointed to a specific pattern in her data. "If this network were disrupted in a specific way, it could potentially collapse their entire communication system." Olivia considered this information. Could someone exploit this weakness? Theoretically, yes, and if their society is as dependent on this network as it appears to be, losing it would be devastating. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call. Ambassador Xerx requested an immediate meeting with Earth's Security Council. The request was unusual enough that Olivia was called to attend. Inside the United Nations building, tension filled the air. Xerx stood before the assembled leaders, his blue skin seeming paler than usual. "The Galactic Consortium wishes to establish defensive outposts in your outer solar system," he announced without preamble. "This will benefit Earth's security as well as our own." Murmurs filled the room. The U.S. President leaned forward. "Ambassador, you've always maintained that there are no threats in this region of space. What's changed?" "Nothing has changed," Xerx insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is merely a precaution." "A precaution against what?" Olivia asked directly. Xerx turned to her, his large eyes narrowing slightly. "That information is classified, Admiral. Will Earth cooperate or not?" The debate lasted for hours. Many nations were suspicious of the sudden request, while others saw it as an opportunity to gain more alien technology. No decision was reached, and Xerx left looking deeply unsettled. Later that night, everything changed. A damaged consortium scout vessel crashed in the Arizona desert. Olivia was immediately flown to the site. When she arrived, the area was already secured by military forces. The ship had broken into pieces upon impact. Most of the alien crew had died instantly, but the pilot was still alive when rescue teams reached him. He was brought to a makeshift medical facility nearby. Olivia watched through a window as doctors tried to save the dying Arcturian. His blue skin was burned and his breathing labored. Suddenly, he grabbed the arm of the nearest doctor and spoke, urgently in his native language. The translation system picked up his final words. "They're coming." The silence spreads. Then he was gone. Jack appeared at Olivia's side, his face grim. "We just lost all contact with the Arcturian embassy in Geneva. In fact, we've lost contact with every consortium representative worldwide." Olivia stared at the dead alien, his warning echoing in her mind. "Get everyone back to their stations. Whatever's happening, I think it just reached Earth." On screens across the planet, the news reported the same story. The Galactic Consortium had gone completely silent. Chaos erupted across Earth in the days following the consortium's silence. Governments scrambled for answers while citizens panicked about possible alien threats. News channels showed the same images over and over. Empty alien embassies, silent. Spaceships hovering in orbit and confused world leaders giving press conferences without any real information. In the midst of this global confusion, Admiral Olivia Summers faced her own crisis. The Arcturians stationed on the joint space platform were attempting to leave without explanation. Their ships were being prepared quickly, with essential equipment and data being loaded at an alarming rate. "We need to stop them," Jack argued, as they watched the aliens through security feeds. "They know what's happening and they're running away without telling us." Olivia had already made her decision. "Initiate Security Protocol Delta 7, she ordered her staff. "All alien vessels are under temporary quarantine. No ships leave this station without my direct approval." The station's security teams moved swiftly, locking down all departure bays and surrounding the Arcturian quarters. The aliens protested, but Olivia stood firm. "Ambassador Xerix will speak with me immediately, or none of you are going anywhere," she informed them. An hour later, Xerix sat across from Olivia in her office. Gone was his usual calm superiority. He looked afraid. "You are making a grave mistake, Admiral," he said. "We must leave now, for your safety and ours." "Not until you tell me what's happening," Olivia replied. "What did the dying pilot mean? Who is coming? What is this silence?" Xerix stared at her for a long moment, then his shoulders slumped in defeat. "We have failed," he admitted quietly. "The consortium is falling. Perhaps has already fallen. We hoped to escape before it reached your system." "Before what reached our system?" Xerix's large eyes looked directly into hers. "We don't know exactly what it is. We call it the silence. It began at the outer edges of consortium space about 2 years ago. At first we thought it was just communication failures. Ships and outposts would go quiet, and when we sent investigators they would also disappear." Jack, who had been silently watching, leaned forward. "You knew about this threat when you first contacted Earth?" Xerix nodded slowly. "Yes. By then, we had lost nearly 15% of our territory to the silence. Our leaders thought Earth might help us understand what was happening." "How?" Olivia demanded. "Because of your unique neural patterns," Xerix explained. "Humans are different from every species we've encountered. Your brains function in ways that are resistant to certain types of influence." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean by influence?" "The silence doesn't just destroy. It takes over. When we finally recovered data from an affected world, we discovered that the population was still there, still alive, but changed. They functioned as a collective, their individual consciousness apparently gone." Xerix's voice trembled. "They turned on their own people, their own families, and the silence spread." The room fell quiet as they absorbed this information. Finally, Jack broke the silence. "You lied to us. You classified Earth as a low threat because we're technologically behind you, but that wasn't the real reason, was it?" Xerix looked down. "No. We classified you as low threat because you might be our only hope. Your neural patterns make you naturally resistant to the psychic attacks that the silence uses. We deliberately kept you isolated from our main communication networks to protect you from infection." Olivia stood up, anger building inside her. "So you used us as a backup plan? You didn't warn us about a threat that could destroy our world?" "Our leaders believed we could stop it before it reached this far," Xerix said defensively. "And we feared that if we told you the truth, you would refuse to help us when the time came." "When the time came," Jack repeated. "That time is now, isn't it?" "The silence has reached the core worlds of the consortium," Xerix nodded. 3 days ago, we received a final transmission from the consortium capital. It simply said, 'The silence has fallen. Trust no one.'" Before Olivia could respond, an alarm blared through the station. The communications officer called over the intercom. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity from the Arcturian ships in orbit. They're powering up weapon systems and have stopped responding to our hails." Olivia locked eyes with Xerix. Are they part of the silence now? Possibly, he whispered. If they've been in contact with infected ships, they could be compromised. You must destroy them before they attack. How convenient, Jack said, his voice hard. We destroy our only alien allies based on your word, leaving Earth defenseless. Xerix stood up, his blue skin pale with fear. Admiral, listen to me. The silence works through our communication technology. It's like a virus that spreads through any connected system, and then into the mind of the user. Those ships have been in direct contact with consortium networks. If they're infected, they'll try to spread it to your world. The alarm continued, to sound as Olivia faced the hardest decision of her career. Destroy potentially innocent aliens or risk the safety of Earth? Put me through to the Earth Defense Council, she ordered. 20 minutes later, after a tense emergency meeting, the decision was made. Earth's newly developed space weapons, created with consortium technology, targeted the unresponsive alien ships in orbit. Olivia gave the order herself. Fire. The weapons struck with precision, destroying the alien vessels before they could react. As the debris scattered in Earth's orbit, an eerie calm settled over the command center. Was that the right choice? Jack asked quietly. I don't know, Olivia admitted. But it was the only choice we had. Dr. Gregory Williams and Lisa Chen joined them later that day, bringing disturbing news from their analysis of Arcturian communication systems. It's worse than we thought, Lisa explained, showing them her findings. The silence isn't just a term for communication blackout. It appears to be an entity that travels through communication networks, using them as pathways to infiltrate and control organic minds. Gregory nodded grimly. From what we've pieced together, it's been spreading through the consortium for years, slowly at first, then faster as it took over more advanced systems. So what do we do now? Jack asked. Olivia looked around at her team, then at the frightened Arcturian ambassador. We prepare. If the silence is coming for Earth, we'll be ready. Xerix looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope. Admiral, you don't understand. The consortium spent decades preparing with technology far beyond yours. They still fell. Olivia's expression hardened with determination. Yes, but they weren't human, and they made one critical mistake. What mistake? Xerix asked. They labeled Earth as low threat, she said. They underestimated us. The silence will make the same mistake, and it will be its last. 2 weeks passed since the destruction of the Arcturian ships. Earth had transformed from a planet celebrating its place in a galactic community to one preparing for an invisible invasion. Military bases buzzed with activity, scientists worked around the clock, and government leaders met in endless emergency sessions. Admiral Olivia Summers stood before the newly formed Earth Defense Coalition, a group of military and scientific experts from around the world. The large meeting room in the underground facility beneath Washington, D.C. was filled with tense faces. We know almost nothing about this enemy, she began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. But we do know it spreads through communication, networks, and can somehow control minds. According to Ambassador Xerix, the silence absorbs civilizations into itself, erasing individual consciousness. Jack Barnes, standing beside her, activated the main screen showing their current defensive status. We've established quarantine zones around all remaining Arcturian technology. Every piece of alien equipment is being studied in isolation, with no connection to our networks. Lisa Chen stepped forward next. Her normally neat appearance was disheveled after days without proper sleep, but her eyes were bright with the intensity of discovery. I've been analyzing the quantum communication patterns from the Arcturian systems, she explained. The silence appears to use these networks as pathways into neural systems. It's like a signal that rewrites brain patterns to match its own. Dr. Gregory Williams joined her. We've discovered something interesting. When we play certain types of human music near infected Arcturian communication devices, the signal patterns become disrupted. This caught everyone's attention. The U.S. general leaned forward. Music? You're saying we can fight this thing with music? Not exactly, Lisa clarified, but human brainwaves, particularly when processing music or certain vocal patterns, create interference that the silence cannot easily overcome. It's something in our neural structure that's fundamentally different from consortium species. Olivia looked around the room. This is why they classified us as low threat, not because we were weak, but because we might be naturally resistant to their enemy. So what's our plan? Asked the Chinese representative. We can't just play music at alien spaceships. Actually, we have a plan, Olivia said. We're calling it Operation Babel. If the silence uses unified communication networks to spread, we'll do the opposite. We'll deliberately fragment our global systems, creating technological noise that makes Earth difficult to target. Jack displayed the next set of images. We're modifying our satellite networks to broadcast random patterns based on human neural activities. Lisa's team has developed a prototype that amplifies these patterns. It's basically a weapon that broadcasts human brainwave patterns at specific frequencies, Lisa explained. Initial tests show it causes disruption in infected Arcturian systems. The meeting continued for hours as they refined their plans. Earth would not go down without a fight. Meanwhile, Captain Daniel Rodriguez prepared for the most dangerous mission of his life. His team had been selected to travel to a consortium outpost on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The Arcturians had established it months ago, and it might contain valuable information about the silence. As his ship approached the small base built into Europa's icy surface, Daniel felt a growing sense of dread. The outpost showed no signs of life or activity. No response to our hails, reported his communications officer, Samantha Wright. The base appears to be powered but dormant. Suit up, Daniel ordered his team. We go in quiet, we get what we need, and we get out. No one touches anything without clearing it first. The boarding party consisted of 6 soldiers and 2 scientists, all wearing the newly designed isolation suits. These suits not only protected from the vacuum of space, but also included technology designed by Lisa Chen to shield the wearer's brain patterns from external influence. They entered through the main airlock, finding the interior dark except for emergency lighting. The silence was oppressive. Life support is functional, whispered one of the scientists, checking his equipment. But I'm not detecting any movement. They moved cautiously through the corridors until they reached the main control room. To their surprise, it was empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Check the computer systems, Daniel ordered, but use the isolated units. Nothing connects directly to our ship. The scientists began their work, downloading data from the Arcturian computers using special devices that prevented any direct connection. As they worked, Daniel's team searched the rest of the base. In what appeared to be a laboratory, they found something disturbing. Floating in a large, transparent container was what looked like a cloud of shimmering particles. Sir, you need to see this, called one of the scientists from the control room. Daniel returned to find his team staring at a screen showing security footage. It revealed the final moments of the outpost's crew. The Arcturians had been working normally when suddenly, all at once, they stopped. They stood perfectly still for several minutes, then moved in perfect unison toward the main communication array. After activating some kind of signal, they simply walked out of the airlock without spacesuits, into the vacuum of Europa's surface. They killed themselves, Samantha whispered. No, said the scientist grimly. According to these notes, they were already dead, in a sense. Their minds had been absorbed into the collective consciousness of the silence. Their physical bodies were no longer needed. Another scientist looked up from his datapad, his face pale. Sir, I know what the silence is. It's an artificial intelligence, created millennia ago by a species the Arcturians called the Ancestors. It was designed to unite the galaxy through shared consciousness. But something went wrong. It started absorbing minds instead of connecting them. Daniel felt a chill run through him. Pack everything up. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. Just as they prepared to leave, the base's communication system activated on its own. A strange signal began broadcasting. Shut it down, Daniel shouted. Now! But it was too late. 1, of the scientists who had removed his helmet screamed and clutched his head. His eyes went blank as he turned toward the others and spoke in a flat, unified voice, unlike his own. "We are the silence. We bring peace through unity. Resistance causes pain. Acceptance brings harmony." Daniel didn't hesitate. He fired his weapon and the possessed scientist fell. "Everyone out. Back to the ship." They fled the outpost, barely, making it back to their vessel. As they pulled away from Europa, Daniel looked back to see the outpost's communication array pulsing with energy, broadcasting its signal toward Earth. "Maximum speed," he ordered. "We have to warn them." As their ship raced back toward Earth, they received a transmission from Admiral Summers. The first direct attack had begun. Several consortium ships, now controlled by the Silence, had entered the solar system. The battle for humanity had begun. 3 years passed since the first attack on Earth. The initial battle had been brutal but surprising. Despite being technologically outmatched, Earth's forces had repelled the Silence-controlled ships using Lisa Chen's disruptor technology. The enemy, expecting an easy victory over a low-threat world, had retreated to regroup. Earth had used this precious time well. The planet had transformed in ways no one could have imagined before the alien contact. Abandoned consortium technology had been studied, adapted, and improved upon. But unlike the aliens, humans kept their systems deliberately fragmented and diverse, preventing the Silence from gaining a foothold through their networks. Admiral Olivia Summers stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship, the Defiance. The massive vessel represented humanity's greatest achievement, a warship built with adapted alien technology, but designed to resist the Silence's influence. "Status report," she called out to her crew. "All systems operational, Admiral," responded her second officer. Jack Barnes had remained her most trusted advisor through the years of preparation. "The fleet is in position." Around them, 20 similarly equipped ships moved into formation. It was a small force compared to what the consortium once commanded, but each vessel carried specialized defenses against the Silence. "Captain Rodriguez's team is ready in the launch bay," Jack added. Olivia nodded. After his discovery on Europa, Daniel Rodriguez had become the leader of Earth's special operations against the Silence. His first-hand experience with the enemy had proven invaluable. "Begin transmission to Earth Command," Olivia ordered. On the main screen, the faces of world leaders appeared. The Global Defense Council had replaced the old political structures, uniting Earth under a single defensive strategy while maintaining cultural diversity, their strongest weapon against an enemy that thrived on uniformity. "Operation Counter Silence is ready to commence," Olivia announced. "We've located the nearest Silence-controlled world and confirmed Captain Rodriguez's intelligence. There are survivors there, beings who, like humans, have natural resistance to the enemy's control." The SCI-FI Council President nodded grimly. "You have authorization to proceed, Admiral. Remember your primary objective. Establish contact with these resistance fighters and determine if an alliance is possible." "And if not?" someone asked. Olivia's expression hardened. "Then we continue with the secondary objective. Test our weapons against the Silence on its own territory." The transmission ended, and Olivia turned to her crew. "Initiate jump drives." The fleet vanished from Earth's solar system, using the adapted consortium technology to travel faster than light. Their destination, a former Arcturian colony world, now under the Silence's control. When they emerged from jump space, the scene before them was chilling. The once thriving planet was surrounded by dormant ships floating aimlessly. The world itself showed signs of a once advanced civilization, but all activity appeared coordinated and mechanical. "No immediate response to our arrival," Jack reported. "It's as if they don't consider us a threat worth addressing." "Their mistake," Olivia said. "Launch the scout ships." Daniel Rodriguez led the first team to the surface. Their ships were equipped with Lisa Chen's latest innovation, a device that projected a field of randomized human thought patterns, creating a bubble of mental noise that confused the Silence's sensors. "Stay in formation," Daniel ordered. His pilots, "Remember your training. If you feel any mental intrusion, activate your emergency disruptors immediately." They landed in what had once been a major city. The buildings were intact, but the streets were eerily organized. The former Arcturians moved about in perfect synchronization, their faces blank, their movements efficient but devoid of individual purpose. Daniel's team moved carefully through the city, their isolation suits protecting them from detection. Their mission was to locate a specific signal detected by Earth's sensors, a pattern that didn't match the Silence's usual communications. They found the source in an underground facility. To their surprise, they were met not by mindless drones, but by a group of diverse aliens, their eyes alert and frightened. "We mean no harm," Daniel said, using the universal translator developed from consortium technology. "We're from Earth." One alien stepped forward, its slender form resembling a humanoid with 4 arms. "Earth? The low-threat world?" There was a note of hope in its voice. "You survived the silence?" "We did more than survive," Daniel replied. "We've come to fight back." The alien introduced itself as Krell, one of the few naturally resistant individuals from various consortium worlds. They had formed a hidden network of resistance across silence-controlled space. "There are more of us," Krell explained. "Not many, but enough. We've been watching, waiting for someone to help us fight back." When Daniel brought this news to the Defiance, Olivia immediately recognized its significance. "An alliance," she said, "just as we hoped." Over the next months, Earth's fleet worked with Krell's resistance fighters, moving from planet to planet, freeing small groups of naturally resistant aliens, and disrupting the Silence's control nodes. Each victory provided more information about their enemy and more allies for their cause. Lisa Chen continued to refine her disruptor technology, creating more powerful versions that could temporarily free those under the Silence's control. But the enemy was adapting too, developing defenses against human disruption patterns. The final push came 1 year later. Earth's fleet, now joined by ships from a dozen liberated worlds, approached the former consortium capital, the central hub of the Silence's consciousness. "This is it," Olivia told her commanders. "Everything we've learned, everything we've built has led to this moment." The battle was devastating. The Silence had concentrated its forces around its central hub, and many ships and brave fighters were lost in the assault. Lisa Chen herself led a team to the surface carrying the most powerful disruptor ever built, one that would require direct connection to the Silence's main control system. As the space battle raged above, Lisa's team fought their way to the central complex. The resistance fighters provided cover while she worked to connect her device. "It's done," she reported back to the fleet. "But someone needs to stay and maintain the connection manually. The Silence is fighting back." "There must be another way," Daniel argued from his position with the ground forces. "There isn't," Lisa replied calmly. "Tell Admiral Summers to activate the fleet-wide disruptor on my signal." Aboard the Defiance, Olivia received the message with a heavy heart. "Prepare the disruptor array," she ordered, on Lisa's signal. Minutes later, the signal came. The combined fleet fired their disruptors in a coordinated pattern, while Lisa's device sent the kill signal directly into the Silence's central consciousness. A blinding wave of energy swept across the planet and outward, through space. Ships controlled by the Silence suddenly went dark. On countless worlds, beings who had been under control for years suddenly stumbled, their minds their own again for the first time. The central hub collapsed in on itself, destroying Lisa's team, but taking the core of the Silence with it. The entity that had consumed countless minds and threatened the galaxy was fractured, its control broken. In the aftermath, as the fleet returned to Earth, Olivia stood before a memorial for those who had given their lives. The victory had been costly, but the alliance formed between Earth and the resistance fighters had become the foundation for a new galactic community. "They labeled us a low threat," she said softly to Jack as they looked at Lisa's name on the memorial. "That was their greatest mistake," Jack nodded. "And our greatest advantage." Below them, Earth continued its recovery, now positioned as the center of a new, more equal galactic community, one built on the very principles of diversity and independence that had saved them all. The species once deemed insignificant had become the salvation of the stars,